The air hangs thick and heavy, a canvas of dust and ancient heat. It is a time before empires, before the names we now speak with reverence were even whispers on the wind. Look closely, across the rugged hills of Judea, around the year 1000 BCE. There, perched precariously on a ridge, is a city. Not grand, not yet, but proud, defiant. Its walls of stone, baked by countless suns, rise from the bedrock like an extension of the earth itself. This is Jebus, a fortress, guarding a precious spring, its people confident in their stronghold. They watch the horizon, day after day, year after year, unaware that their ancient world is about to collide with a force far greater than any army, a force driven by faith, by destiny, by a king whose name would echo through millennia. And so, the question begins to form. How did this single city, as this dusty outpost high in the hills, become the spiritual heart for billions? Why do three of the world's largest faiths, Judaism, Christianity and Islam, each point to its stones, its valleys, its very air, as sacred? What happened in this one small place that made it a crucible of belief, a battleground of devotion, a beacon of hope for so many? Before David, before the kings and prophets, Jerusalem was simply a strategic point, a watering hole in a harsh land. But even then, something drew people to it. Legends passed down through generations speak of a man named Abraham. He journeyed from Ur, called by a voice that promised him descendants as numerous as the stars, and one day that voice commanded him to climb a mountain in the land of Moriah, to offer his son. Imagine the father, his heart a raw wound, leading his beloved son up the steep path, the wood for the sacrifice heavy on his back. The silence between them, broken only by their footsteps on the rocky ground. This profound act of faith, this willingness to give everything, unfolded on a peak that many believe is the very bedrock upon which Jerusalem would later stand. It was a moment of agonizing choice, a test of absolute devotion, a story that would forever bind Abraham to this land and this land to the divine. For Jews, it was Isaac. For Muslims, Ishmael. The details differ, but the essence remains, a sacred covenant forged in the shadow of these hills. Centuries passed. The land saw tribes rise and fall, small kingdoms clash. Then came David, a shepherd, a poet, a warrior. He united the scattered tribes of Israel, forged them into a nation, but he needed a capital. A place central to all, yet belonging to none. His eyes fell on Jebus, impregnable, or so it seemed. The Jebusites mocked him, saying even the blind and the lame could defend their walls. But David was not just a warrior, he was a visionary. He found a secret passage, a water shaft, and sent his men through it, surprising the defenders. The city fell, not through brute force alone, but through cunning and audacious spirit. David renamed it Jerusalem, City of Peace, a name that would one day feel like a cruel irony. He brought the Ark of the Covenant, the sacred chest containing the 10 Commandments, into his new capital. Imagine the procession, a vibrant, joyous chaos. Priests blowing trumpets, people singing and dancing, the Ark covered in rich cloths, carried on poles, making its solemn, triumphant entry. This was not just a political act, it was a spiritual declaration. Jerusalem was no longer just a city of stone, it was now the dwelling place of God's presence on earth. It was the heart of a nation, the epicenter of a faith. David, the once humble shepherd, had transformed a fortified hilltop into the holiest site in Judaism, a beacon that would draw pilgrims for thousands of years. But this was only the beginning. Before we go further, where are you watching this from? Drop it in the comments. And if this story already has you hooked, subscribe now. Every episode hits like this. David laid the foundations, but it was his son Solomon who would build the dream. He constructed the first temple, a marvel of cedar and gold, a permanent home for the Ark, a place where heaven and earth truly met. This grand structure, conceived in divine vision, solidified Jerusalem's eternal claim as the most sacred place on earth for the Jewish people. But what happens when such a magnificent singular testament to faith is threatened? What happens when empires, larger and more ruthless than any seen before, cast their shadow over this sacred ground? The very existence of this holy city, and the faith it housed, was about to be tested in ways no one could have imagined, and the destruction, when it came, would be absolute. The first temple stood for nearly 400 years, 4 centuries of prayers, of sacrifices, of a people's unwavering devotion centered on that one magnificent structure. Imagine the scent of incense, thick and sweet, rising to the heavens from its golden altars. Picture the high priest, robed in splendor, entering the Holy of Holies, the very presence of God believed to reside within. For generations, this temple was the axis of their world, a tangible link between the earthly and the divine. It was the promise of Abraham, the triumph of David, the wisdom of Solomon, all crystallized in stone and cedar. But even the most sacred places are not immune to the ambitions of men or the shifting tides of empire. The whispers began in the east. Rumors of a new power, a colossal force sweeping across the ancient world, Babylon. Its armies, led by Nebuchadnezzar II, were relentless, their ambition boundless. The small kingdom of Judah, with Jerusalem as its heart, found itself caught in the path of this unstoppable juggernaut. King Zedekiah, a puppet of Babylon, made a fateful decision. He rebelled. A desperate gamble, defueled by a flicker of hope for independence, but ultimately a tragic miscalculation. The siege of Jerusalem began in the 10th month, on the 10th day. For 30 months the city endured. Imagine the starvation, the thirst, the slow, grinding despair within those walls. Picture the faces of the people, gaunt and hollow-eyed, watching the Babylonians outside, knowing their fate was sealed. Every day the hope dwindled, replaced by the grim reality of their isolation. And then it broke. On the 9th day of the 4th month, in the 11th year of Zedekiah's reign, the Babylonian army breached the walls. What followed was an unimaginable horror. The city was plundered, the people slaughtered or enslaved, and the temple, the glorious temple, the pride of a nation, the dwelling place of God, was systematically dismantled. Its treasures looted, its sacred vessels shattered. Finally it was set ablaze. Imagine the smoke, black and choking, rising from the holy mountain visible for miles around. The screams of the dying, the roar of the fire, the sickening crash of collapsing stone. The temple, a monument to faith, became a pyre of despair. The Ark of the Covenant, its whereabouts after the destruction forever shrouded in mystery, vanished. This was not just the destruction of a building, it was the shattering of a world. The Jewish people were torn from their land, marched in chains to Babylon, their identity, their faith, their very existence, thrown into question. This was the Babylonian exile. For 50 years they lived as captives in a foreign land, haunted by the memory of Jerusalem, by the echo of the burning temple. How do you maintain your faith when its physical manifestation, its heart, lies in ruins? How do you sing the Lord's song in a strange land? This trauma, this profound loss, forged something new within them. It solidified their identity, not just as a people of a land, but as a people of a book, a people of a covenant. Their faith became portable, carried in their hearts, in their scriptures, in their collective memory of a city they vowed never to forget. Then a new empire rose, Persia. Cyrus the Great, a conqueror with a different vision, issued a decree. The Jews could return to Jerusalem, return to their shattered city and rebuild their temple. Imagine the journey. Generations born in exile, now seeing the promised land for the first time. The tears, the awe, the sorrow at the desolation they found, but also the fierce determination. They rebuilt the walls, they rebuilt the temple, though it lacked the grandeur of Solomon's original. This second temple stood for centuries, a testament to resilience, a symbol of hope resurrected from ashes. It was during the Second Temple period that the foundations for early Judaism were truly solidified, practices and beliefs refined, ensuring the survival of their faith even without the Ark. But the story of Jerusalem is one of relentless cycles, conquest and rebuilding, desecration and rededication. The Second Temple too would face its challenges. Empires would continue to clash over this sacred ground, each leaving its mark, each adding another layer of meaning, another layer of blood to the stones of the city. The question remains, how many times can a city be destroyed and rebuilt before its very essence changes? And what new spiritual claims would rise from its ashes, forever altering its destiny? Think about a place that holds deep meaning for you. What would it feel like if it were taken away or destroyed? Share your thoughts in the comments, I'd love to know. For the Jewish people, Jerusalem was and remains the heart of their world. But the wider world was shifting. A new voice, a new prophet, would soon walk its dusty streets, claiming a lineage that stretched back to David, and a message that would shatter the existing order, forever changing the spiritual landscape of this ancient city, and indeed, the entire planet. His arrival would set in motion a chain of events that would imbue Jerusalem with an entirely new and equally powerful layer of sacred significance. The Second Temple stood majestic, if not quite as opulent as Solomon's. Its courtyards bustled with pilgrims from across the Roman Empire, speaking dozens of languages, all drawn to this singular spiritual centre. Roman legions, ever present, patrolled the city, a constant reminder of who truly held power. This was a time of immense tension, of fervent expectation. Many believed a Messiah, a saviour, would come to liberate Israel from Roman rule, restoring the glory of David's kingdom. The air in Jerusalem was thick with prophecy, with hope, with simmering resentment. Into this world, in a small town called Nazareth, a carpenter named Jesus began his ministry. He was not a king, not a general, not a priest in the temple hierarchy. He was a man of the people, teaching in parables, healing the sick, speaking of a kingdom not of this world. His message, radical in its simplicity, spoke of love, forgiveness, and a direct relationship with God, bypassing the elaborate rituals of the temple. He gathered disciples, 12 ordinary men, and together they journeyed through Galilee, their reputation growing with every miracle, every sermon. But Jerusalem, the beating heart of Judaism, the seat of religious and political power, was always his ultimate destination. Imagine his entry into the city, not on a war horse but on a humble donkey. The crowds waving palm branches, shouting, "Hosanna! Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord." A king, yes, but one whose crown was made of thorns, whose throne would be a cross. He taught in the temple courts, challenging the established order, overturning the tables of money changers, and proclaiming the temple a house of prayer, not a den of thieves. His words, his actions stirred both fervent devotion and fierce opposition. He was a threat to the Roman authorities, who feared rebellion, and a challenge to the Jewish religious leaders, who saw their authority undermined. The final days of Jesus' life unfolded within the ancient stones of Jerusalem. The Last Supper, shared with his disciples in an upper room, transformed a Passover meal into a new covenant, a sacred ritual that would be repeated by billions for 2,000 years. His agonizing prayer in the Garden of Gethsemane, just outside the city walls, where he wrestled with his destiny. His arrest, his trial, his condemnation by Pontius Pilate, the Roman governor, bowing to the shouts of a manipulated crowd, and then Golgotha, Calvary, a hill just beyond the city gates, a place of execution. Imagine the scene, the rough wood of the cross, the jeering crowd, the two criminals crucified beside him, his mother, Mary, watching in unbearable anguish, his last breath, the earth trembling, the sky darkening. For Christians, this was not simply the death of a man, it was the ultimate sacrifice, the redemption of humanity, the fulfillment of prophecy. His blood spilled on the very ground where Abraham had offered Isaac, where the temple had stood, imbued Jerusalem with a new, profound, and eternal sacredness. 3 days later, the tomb was found empty, the resurrection. This single event, believed by Christians to be the triumph over death, cemented Jerusalem's place as the birthplace of their faith. The disciples, once terrified and scattered, were transformed. They began to preach the good news, starting right there in Jerusalem on the day of Pentecost, when the Holy Spirit descended upon them. From this small city, the message of Christianity exploded, spreading across the Roman Empire, eventually reaching every corner of the globe. But the story of Jerusalem and the Jewish people was far from over. Decades after Jesus' crucifixion, tensions with Rome reached a breaking point. Another rebellion, another siege. In 70 CE, the Roman general Titus, son of Emperor Vespasian, laid waste to Jerusalem. The city was utterly destroyed, its walls torn down, its people massacred or enslaved. And the Second Temple, the symbol of Jewish survival and resilience, was burned to the ground. Imagine the devastation, the horror, the echoes of the Babylonian destruction, but this time even more absolute. The Arch of Titus, still standing in Rome today, depicts the spoils of Jerusalem, including the menorah, being carried in triumph. This time, the destruction was different. It wasn't just a physical ruin, it was a spiritual cataclysm. For the Jewish people, the temple was gone, perhaps forever. But their faith, forged in exile and refined by suffering, endured. It had to. And for the nascent Christian faith, now spreading rapidly, the destruction of the temple was interpreted as a sign, a fulfillment of Jesus' own prophecies, signaling a new era, a new covenant. But the ashes of Jerusalem would not lie still for long. From its rubble, a new spiritual claim would arise, one that would once again transform the city's destiny, linking it to yet another global faith. What do you think? Was the destruction of the temple a tragic end, or a necessary beginning for something new? Let me know your perspective. The Romans, in their attempt to erase Jewish identity, renamed the city Aelia Capitolina and forbade Jews from entering. But you cannot erase faith with an edict. You cannot extinguish a spirit with a sword. The stage was now set for the arrival of a new prophet from a distant desert whose vision would once again claim Jerusalem, adding another layer of sacredness, another layer of conflict to its already complex multi-layered soul. For centuries after the Roman destruction, Jerusalem lay largely in ruins, a shadow of its former glory. The Jewish people, scattered across the globe in what became known as the diaspora, continued to yearn for it, their prayers forever facing its direction. Christians, now a growing and eventually dominant force within the Roman Empire, began to build churches and shrines over the sites associated with Jesus' life, death, and resurrection. Helena, mother of Emperor Constantine, made a pilgrimage in the early 4th century, identifying key locations and commissioning the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, a colossal basilica built over the traditional sites of Calvary and Jesus' tomb. Jerusalem, once a Jewish spiritual centre, was rapidly becoming a Christian holy city, a magnet for pilgrims from across the Christian world. But the story of Jerusalem, as we have seen, is one of constant flux, of new claims arising from old stones. Far to the south, in the deserts of Arabia, a new prophet emerged in the 7th century, Muhammad. He preached a message of submission to one God, Allah, and a return to the pure monotheism of Abraham. Islam, the new faith, spread with astonishing speed, uniting disparate tribes and challenging the established powers of the Byzantine, Eastern Roman, and Persian empires. Early in his prophetic mission, Muhammad directed his followers to pray towards Jerusalem. Imagine the early Muslims bowing in prayer in the nascent days of Islam, their faces turned towards the distant holy city. This initial reverence was born from a profound respect for the prophets who came before him. Abraham, Moses, Jesus, all revered figures in Islamic tradition. Jerusalem, or Al-Quds, the Holy One, as it became known in Arabic, was seen as part of this unbroken chain of prophecy. But then came the night journey and ascension, a pivotal event in Islamic belief. Tradition holds that one night, in the year 621, Muhammad was miraculously transported from Mecca to Jerusalem. Imagine him, carried by a winged creature called Buraq, arriving at the Temple Mount, the very site where Solomon's temple once stood. There, he's said to have prayed with all the prophets who came before him, Moses, Jesus, and others, an extraordinary gathering of divine messengers. From this sacred rock he then ascended through the 7 heavens, encountering angels and seeing God's divine presence before returning to Mecca. This mystical journey, described in the Quran and elaborated in countless traditions, cemented Jerusalem's sacred status in Islam, making it the 3rd holiest city after Mecca and Medina. In 637, just 5 years after Muhammad's death, the Muslim armies, led by Caliph Omar ibn al-Khattab, peacefully entered Jerusalem. The Byzantine Christian patriarch Sophronius surrendered the city to Omar, reportedly under conditions that protected its Christian and Jewish inhabitants and their places of worship. Omar, a man of profound humility and piety, is said to have refused to pray inside the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, fearing that if he did, future Muslims would convert it into a mosque. Instead, he prayed outside, a gesture of respect that spoke volumes. He then cleared the Temple Mount, which had been left in disarray by the Romans and Byzantines, and established a simple wooden mosque. Decades later, in the late 7th century, the Umayyad Caliph Abd al-Malik ordered the construction of a magnificent structure over the sacred rock from which Muhammad ascended to heaven, the Dome of the Rock. Imagine its golden dome, shining under the desert sun, a beacon of Islamic faith, its intricate mosaics, its breathtaking calligraphy, its sheer architectural splendour. This was not just a mosque, it was a statement, a declaration of Islam's presence in Jerusalem, a testament to its spiritual claim, built on the very ground where Abraham had offered his son, where Solomon's temple had stood, where Jesus had taught. The Dome of the Rock and the Al-Aqsa Mosque built nearby transformed the skyline of Jerusalem and forever etched its place in the heart of the Muslim world. For Muslims, Jerusalem is not just a historical site. It is a living testament to the lineage of prophets, a place where heaven touched earth, a city forever linked to the journey of their final prophet. This act of building, this monumental construction, was a profound reassertion of sacred space, layering a new, vibrant faith onto the ancient stones. Do you think it's possible for three faiths to truly share one sacred space without conflict? Or is the very nature of such deep belief destined to clash? Share your thoughts. But Jerusalem, always a crossroads, always a prize, would not remain under sole Muslim rule indefinitely. The Crusades, a violent eruption of religious fervour from Christian Europe, would soon descend upon the Holy Land, unleashing centuries of bloodshed and further cementing Jerusalem's reputation as a city fought over, a city bled for, a city where faith and empire would forever intertwine in a dance of devotion and destruction. The stage was set for another colossal clash, another chapter in the endless struggle for the soul of this unparalleled city. The Crusades arrived in the 11th century, a thunderous response from Christian Europe to centuries of Muslim rule in the Holy Land. For nearly 200 years, Jerusalem became the epicenter of a brutal, intermittent conflict, changing hands between Christian and Muslim forces multiple times. Imagine the sieges, the massacres, the fervent prayers of soldiers on both sides, each believing God was on their side, each fighting for the same sacred ground. The city of peace became a city of war, stained by the blood of countless believers. Yet, through it all, the spiritual significance of Jerusalem only deepened for all three faiths. For Christians, the Crusades were a desperate attempt to reclaim the birthplace of their Saviour, to secure the sites of his life, death, and resurrection. For Muslims, it was a defence of Al-Quds, the city of the night journey, a holy city under attack. And for the scattered Jewish communities, caught in the crossfire, Jerusalem remained the eternal promise, the place of return. Centuries passed, empires rose and fell. The Ottoman Empire, a Muslim power, ruled Jerusalem for 400 years, from the early 16th century to the early 20th. Under their long reign, a relative peace, albeit one under strict control, settled over the city. The three faiths coexisted, sometimes harmoniously, sometimes uneasily within the ancient walls. The golden dome of the rock continued to gleam. The Church of the Holy Sepulchre welcomed pilgrims, and Jewish communities, though small, maintained their presence, praying at the Western Wall, the last remnant of the Second Temple. The 20th century brought new conflicts, new nationalisms, and the re-emergence of the Jewish people's desire for a homeland in Zion. The British Mandate, the Holocaust, and the establishment of the State of Israel in 1948 all unfolded with Jerusalem at their heart. The city was tragically divided, its eastern half, including the Old City and its holy sites, under Jordanian control, and its western half becoming the capital of the new State of Israel. For 19 years, Jews were largely barred from their holiest sites in the Old City. Then, in 1967, the Six-Day War brought the entire city under Israeli control. Imagine the emotion, the sheer overwhelming sense of history as Israeli paratroopers reached the Western Wall, tears streaming down their faces after 2 millennia of yearning. Today, Jerusalem remains a city of profound paradoxes. It is a vibrant, modern capital, yet its ancient stones whisper tales of prophets and kings. It is a city of peace, yet it is often a flashpoint of conflict. It is claimed by three faiths, each with an unshakable connection, each with a profound, sacred narrative woven into its very fabric. So how did this single city, this dusty outpost high in the hills, become the spiritual heart for billions. It happened because of Abraham's willingness to sacrifice, an act of faith that consecrated its very ground. It happened because of David's vision, transforming a fortress into the capital of a kingdom and the dwelling place of God. It happened because of Jesus' life, death, and resurrection, which made it the birthplace of Christianity and the site of humanity's redemption. And it happened because of Muhammad's night journey and ascension, which linked it eternally to the heavens and to the lineage of prophets in Islam. Each layer of history, each act of devotion, each moment of destruction and rebuilding has only deepened its sacredness. Jerusalem is not just a collection of holy sites, it is a living testament to the enduring power of faith. It is a city where the divine has repeatedly intersected with the human, leaving an indelible mark on the souls of billions. Its story is a mosaic, each piece a different faith, a different history, a different claim, all united by the singular magnetic pull of its stones. The city continues to stand, a testament to human resilience and divine promise. Its future, like its past, will undoubtedly be complex, challenging, and endlessly fascinating. It remains a place where the yearning for peace is as strong as the echoes of past conflicts. It is a city that reminds us that faith, in its purest form, can move mountains, inspire empires, and endure through millennia, even in the face of unimaginable destruction. What shocked you the most about this intricate history of Jerusalem? Share your thoughts and reflections in the comments below. And if this journey through time and faith resonated with you, consider sharing it with someone who might also find its story compelling.